Okay then, good evening, welcome back to another race in this season 10 of the PlayStation 5 side of AOR ACC. We are here round 4 at Valencia for the first GT3 race on the PlayStation side at Valencia, so a new challenge for most of the drivers tonight. I imagine there is a lot of people that are doing a competitive race here for the first time, and it will be very exciting to see how that all plays out. Already looking very competitive in the practice times, and let's hope that will continue nicely into the race. Not a track that I know fantastically well myself either, but should be quite tough to overtake today, is one of the things I would imagine. Also, from the laps that I have done around here, track limits will be an interesting one today, so drive-throughs possible for track limits, qualifying laps very important early on, every possibility to run wide and delete that lap time. Shades of current real-life Formula 1. We have a couple of new drivers in for their first race of the season. We have Ollie Racing here for the first time this season, as well as Time, a returning AOR driver but joining from this round, and 25 drivers here so far tonight as we head towards the end of the practice session. Other worthwhile thing to note is the air and track temperature here. Very warm conditions, 32 degrees air temperature, 42 degrees track temperature, so it will be a challenge on the tyres. Lots of overheating going on, but it is a 1 hour race with a mandatory pit stop, including a mandatory tyre change, so only half an hour stints for these drivers to survive on the expected strategy. So currently at this moment in time, not that practice times do necessarily bear any resemblance to what will follow, not exactly anyway. We do have Michelin Man at the top of the timing pages for now. Current championship leader Tinus in P2, having taken 2 wins and a second place so far this season. And then Jazzman currently in P3 here in practice, also P3 in the championship, yet to take a win this season. Could this race be the one? It's looking all very competitive up the front, plenty of cars up there in the fight for the win today, and a lot of drivers slightly lower down the timing sheet may not have necessarily done qualifying runs in this practice session. That will all have to be answered in a few minutes' time as the drivers finish their last runs in practice. The final car on a lap will be Slicker, assuming there is no invalidation here, getting every minute of practice available. actually have Slicker jump back to the pit lane, which means Dennis will be the last car across the line to end the session. And in around 20 seconds time we will jump into qualifying. See if Michelin Man continues his streak of being first out the pit lane onto a lap. He is right up the end of the pit lane. And here we go.
Green light. Go, go, go.
And indeed, Michelin Man first out. Straight out onto track. We've got Bleeding Sunrise behind, and then Skov and Jazzman to start us off. So qualifying times here, expecting pole to be a 1 minute 30. I will be surprised, but I have been surprised before if someone gets into the 29s. Let's wait and find out. As everyone slowly filtering out through the pit lane. Not the longest lap in the world, so don't want to wait too long. And just to mix it up a bit for this week, we might ride on board with someone other than Michelin Man for the first lap. Let's join PS Vids a few cars back in the Ferrari here. All slowing up as the drivers in front make a bit of space to start their laps, but plenty of space behind for PS Vids. Rolls round to open his lap. Nice and cautious on the track limits through turn 1. It is possible to run a little way over the curb on the exit without invalidating. It is very much the in-game track limits that are applied here, but no harm in being a bit cautious on the first run round. Nice and clean so far without looking like he's pushing it too far to the limit. Just looking for that banker lap. Offline there through a very tough right hand kink, trying to carry as much pace as possible, but the exit curve appears very quickly. Not 100% sure if that's an invalidation from PS Vids. We'll see as he crosses the line. Early pace being set at the low 31s, and indeed that was an invalidation towards the end of the lap. So Jazzman taking the early pace here on the first runs. Join Ollie Racing at the end of his first lap, looking very competitive in the practice and very much going to mix it up with the top runners, I would expect, but not the first lap he'd be looking for. So already track limits looks to be taking its toll on quite a few drivers' first efforts, but Still 10 minutes to go and not time to be worrying just yet. As Michelin Man moves forward into the 1 minute 30s on the second lap. Does Jazzman have a response to that one? Does not appear so this time around. So Michelin Man P1 by 0.3 at the moment. Don Michele's had some good strong pace in the Lamborghini at the start of this season, just in that little pack behind the top group that have been battling out and holding down the podium positions, and that is up to 7th place for the time being. Definitely some more time potentially there. Skov has got himself up into P5, just 7 to 8 tenths off Michelin Man. The majority of the drivers now getting a lap time in. Leading Sunrise still looking to do that. Clean through turn 1 there. Slightly wide moment on the exit with a little bit of counter steering to keep that Porsche in line. And may have got away with that one on the track limits, but was fairly wide there. Into the very tricky braking zone here, already braking before you're through the first right-hander into the sharp hairpin. But all nicely tucked into the apex. As Leading Sunrise continues to look for this first lap time on the board, and that may be that lap gone as well. It does look like he is still pushing forwards. No, that is setting up for the next lap, so another failed attempt for Leading Sunrise, and he will be one of just 2 drivers left to set a lap time now. Guido Christ improves to the top 10. Tough start to the season for Guido Christ. The race is not going his way so far. Definitely a quick driver, but hasn't worked out. We'll be hoping to stay out of trouble today, and a good qualifying session will be very helpful to get him set further up the field, not having to make those moves to come back to where he knows his pace can bring him. Still improvements from Jazzman and Tinnis, but Michelin Man holding that pole position for the time being. No one else other than those 3 able to get within half a second. And Ollie Racing still with that banker lap time, which was well off his pace, so he will be really looking to improve on that. Definitely would expect him to be starting in the top 4 for this race. He comes around the last corner. I have completely lost track whether this is an out lap or invalid or a valid lap from across the line. So it's the beginner lap. So we'll find out in 90 seconds time whether he has got that one on the board. Meanwhile, just outside the top 3 spots, we have Skov, best of the rest currently. Scott fell in P5. Timmy on his return P6. Just pipping PS Vids in the other Ferrari, and Bonival and Don Michelo also just within that second mark at the top. Devil's Armpit still sat in the pit lane, so no attempt made from him at a lap just yet. As Ollie Racing continues round. A little bit of traffic up ahead shouldn't be an issue. Potentially a little bit left on the table there just to make sure that that was within track limits and very wide into the entry to the final corner. Opening up that line, but was it legal? Is this a jump to the front? Yes it is. Ollie Racing up to P6. As we have a traffic jam coming out the pit lane. Ollie Racing can now go and chase a bit more lap time with that lap on the board now. Another couple of drivers further back that I'm sure will be looking to improve, Shaka Zulu and Matthew Asbrook. Both usually mid-pack drivers in this tier, but currently sat P23-24. Sharper no longer on a lap this time around. Let's see what Matthew is doing. Round towards the start of his lap. If this is a flying lap. Looks very cautious to me. I think that may be an out lap potentially. But what is going on up the front? We've got Bonival just back into the pit lane, into P6. That is potentially just one more lap if he can come back out again, but very respectable half second off the front. Still no change in the top three, but Ollie Racing has made his way up to P4 with another improvement. Matthew comes across the line. It is no improvement if that was another flyer. We'll be looking to gain some more tenths at the end. All very competitive. Lots to be gained from small chunks of lap time here. As Michelin Man raises the bar once again, 1 minute 30.6, just piling the pressure onto those behind to find even more than they've already managed. Here just heading towards the third sector, and that is wide again. Not sure whether that will have been legal. Just 1 or 2 laps left as the session timer ticks down, just past 1 minute remaining. So final couple of attempts coming up for everyone to see if they can steal another position or two for this grid order. anyone challenge Michelin Man for pole position here. That 3/10 gap looking fairly comfortable as it stands. Ollie racing in the pits, so his session is done. Currently P4. Looks like he may have enough there to hold on to that. So that is the end of that lap for Bleeding Sunrise as well, and the end of his qualifying session. Timmy coming round the final corner to complete his last lap. P8 at the moment. Is there any improvement? No, he will finish there. Still P8 at the moment. Anyone else improving? Guido Christ in 14th across the line and stays 14th. So can anyone do anything? Sharka has finished down in P24. Matthew coming across the line now. Improves, but only by hundredths, and that is P23. And a couple of disappointing qualifying sessions there for Matthew and Sharka. I'm sure they will be wondering if they could have got themselves further up, and will now need to do it in the race. Final effort for Tinus. No, it is a pit lane entry practice, as well as Scott behind doing the same thing, and Slicker as well. Last car now finishes qualifying, and that is our order. So another pole for Michelin Man, looking to bounce back in the battle with Tinus. So far this season it has gone one way then the other. Tinus taking the opening win, Michelin Man in round 2, and Tinus retaking the outright championship lead last time out. But very, very competitive up the front end of the field. Lots of quick drivers, and I'm sure a few that will feel disappointed in their qualifying position and then look forward and realise that everyone there was going to be tough to catch. So all down to what they can manage in the race now. Like I said earlier, overtaking tough really seems to be the one opportunity down the start finish straight into turn 1, but high speed corner, so difficult into turn 1 itself, really setting up potentially for the hairpin in turn 2. We may see a few different lines going into the final corner as well, just looking for something there, but we will wait and see how that all pans out. So everyone sorting their setup, sorting their pit stop strategies, any last minute adjustments from qualifying, tyre pressures, just to make sure they're in the right window. Tyre temperatures will be something that it's very hard to control regardless, and not much tyre warm up I imagine needed for this formation lap, as they will look to keep them nice and cool for as long as possible before we get into the race. Again, as I said earlier, first competitive GT3 race around this circuit in AOR PlayStation, so limited experience in the racing here. It will remain to be seen whether that does cause some slight moments where there's a bit of unpredictability, maybe some moves made that aren't really on. We did have quite an attrition-filled race at Suzuka, lots of optimistic moves, some contact here and there, but fingers crossed everything a little bit cleaner today and we can get some nice close racing.
30 seconds.
So lots of the cars are dropping down off the jacks onto the grid. Just
20 seconds.
20 seconds until the formation lap gets underway. And then we will go racing in Valencia.
10 seconds.
Michelin Man away off his grid slot. Same top three remaining so far this season, consistent. Yet to find someone to break into that. Is this the day for Ollie Racing to get amongst it? Skov has been there and thereabouts in the races, but fallen back a couple of times and not quite been able to challenge for that podium. And then Scott in P6, my fellow coordinator, always in that zone just behind the quickest guys, has found himself in no man's land a couple of times already this season, just doing his own race. As we have Bonival back in the pit lane, so has not made it onto the start, and he will end up with a pit lane start, which is far from ideal here. A strong qualifying in P7, but that will be disappointing, and already having to make a comeback through the field. To the Sector 2 split. It will be 2x2 formation very soon. It will be a long, slow run to the start line for this one. Everyone should be comfortably round the last corner before we get anywhere close to the green light. Michelin Man with the inside line on that pole position. Will he hold off Jazzman? P2. The Ferrari not the strongest launch off the line usually, so I'm sure Michelin Man will be happy to have Jazzman there instead of Tinus or Ollie in the Lamborghini or the McLaren. But let's see what happens as we get set to go racing.
Green light, show them where you go.
And green light is there. Away we go. Strong start for Michelin Man. Jazzman already jumping into the slipstream, looking for the inside line, but Michelin Man will hold that one comfortably at the start. What do we have going on further back? There is an incident early on. That is Guido Christ. That is Rob A, Matthew, all sorts involved in that one. Joe Powell as well, so not a good start for several drivers there. As the timing screens go absolutely mental, can we re-find our leaders? Michelin Man still holds it, so all as we were in the top four. First gainer is Scott, who has got past the Lamborghini of Skov, so a change for P5. But Michelin Man away, strong start, but not able to pull away. It is very much still on at the front and could be a long, long battle this race. Further back we see it was Rick MotoGP also involved in that early incident. Jazzman nowhere near close enough down into turn 1 at the beginning of the second lap, so first job done for Michelin Man. Now time to try and settle into the rhythm, build the pace and make sure that there is no further opportunity. And we do have a couple of hitters from that first lap collision, so Rick and Joe Powell looking to fix the damage, get a fresh set of tyres on, get that stop out the way and try and make some progress in clean air if they can bring themselves out of the pit lane without going a lap down, but I think that may be unlikely. So we have Bleeding Sunrise also gained a couple of positions at the start, right on the back of Skov as well. And all over the curbs there, unsettling the Porsche and just dropping back a little bit, but looking very racy early on, Bleeding Sunrise. Timmy, Moosington, PS Vids all still in close company. Field has not spread out in this first couple of laps very much at the front. And we see Rick is unfortunately coming out of the pit lane right in the thick of the traffic. So that is a lap down already for those cars fixing damage after the first lap incident. And we have already lost 2 cars from this race, so Bonival nowhere to be seen after that pit lane start. And Skov just struggling here a little bit at the start. Qualifying pace was strong, but looks to be the first real gap in the pack is that P5 to P6. So the Bleeding Sunrise will be looking to make a move as soon as possible and not lose touch with the top 5, I would imagine. Slightly different lines there, and Skov wide on the exit. This could well be a chance. And Bleeding Sunrise to the outside, not hanging it around the outside there. Is there enough to cut back? No, well defended from Skov. That will remain P5 for him for the time being, but all the while the front 5 continue to build that gap, so too much battling early on may not be helpful for either of them. As Skov disappears off, very uncertain what happened there, very, very strange moment. And he has rejoined, so that... And the car has completely gone round. Is that tyres related? It was a big snap. Looked very strange. Rejoins right at the back now, other than those that have made their stops. So, and those tyres have just given up the ghost in that Lamborghini. One spin and that is just everything done there. Very unfortunate for Skov early on. Just really fighting all together. But let's jump back into the action. We have some close battling all the way through still. As we see some moves attempted ahead. But we're on board with Slicker here, who was nice and close to Yip. It's just starting to settle down a little bit, those gaps. just easing out to around a second across the field. Michelin Man just building the gap slightly at the front now, over a second away from Jazzman. Obviously no DRS or anything in those realms to worry about, but just bring that gap to a comfortable point that a slight mistake into one corner doesn't gift an opportunity for the move. Tinnis as well sticking with Ollie Racing there or thereabouts, but a second and a half back from P3, and Scott Fell keeping close as well. But this group here, all the way from P11, Pren at the front of this battle, all the way down to Slicker, and I'm sure Devil's Armpit behind will be looking to join as well. Dennis going slightly narrow into that final corner, whether that was to put off Don Michaelo in front or to slightly defend from McQuiz behind. It's very tough to tell in these circumstances, but McQuiz very close in that Lamborghini. Pren still leads this group. As I suspected, Devil's Armpit also onto the back of this group now, so it is very much a 7-car battle for P11 early on, as we have a little bit of a look there from Yip. Has he got that one done? Round the outside of the hairpin will be very tough. We'll join on board as they are still side by side. And McQuiz gives that one up, so Yip up a place. We also missed in all that. Don Michaelo has slid backwards, so a mistake through there as well. So up 2 positions for Yip, one gifted and one strong overtake there. And now that gives Pren a little bit of breathing space with the mistake from Don Michaelo. Dennis Van Eyck will now see if he has the pace to close in that gap once again. So it was a game crash for Bonneville, unfortunately. Missed the starting grid and returned to the garage. Disappointment there after a reasonable qualifying session. I'm sure plenty of hope for the race to build a couple more positions as well. But Pren just settling in here. Dennis not able to close that gap in immediately, so good signs for Pren's pace, as Dennis has a big moment there, and Yip will be looking for another position again. Just a little show of the nose to the inside, and maybe slightly put off Dennis in the mirrors there as Dennis runs in deep. Yip flashing the lights, which is not going to do anything because they are racing for position. No need for any kind of moving out of the way here. But the pressure being applied definitely from Yip in the Mercedes. But still close company behind as well, so not easy to go full out on the attack. As we check in once again with another beginning of a recovery drive for Guido Christ. Seems to be the story of his season so far, as we actually have some side-by-side action there with... Oh, and that is some very unhelpful connection. Is that on Guido Christ's end? This could be very problematic if that is a connection issue, and that will be problematic as well. Guido Christ into the wall, so the comeback drive not in a strong position there, and still stationary. Is he going to get that car going again and bring it back to the pits? No, he is not. So back on board with one of the closest battles currently going on. Yet continuing to follow Dennis, just waiting for a big enough error to take some kind of advantage from. And there is a half opportunity. Dennis going a little bit wide. Yep, going for the wide line into the hairpin, but really not very easy to get any form of cutback, and actually inviting pressure on himself from McQuiz, who did get the run, but a difficult corner to go for a move at all. And McQuiz has to settle in behind once again. Really close stuff in this midfield, and very hard to look for any other battling while this is all going on. I can tell you that the front of the field remains all much as you were. Those gaps around a second between the front three, and then a couple of seconds gap back to P4 and again to P5. As McQuiz gets almost alongside Yep once again, so looking to take back that position, and that is a bit too bold there. Small amount of contact, and actually the winner from that is Devil's Armpit, who makes the most of Slicker being slightly impeded there. So Devil's Armpit up a position to P15, Slicker dropped down to the back of this pack. Meanwhile, further up, Bleeding Sunrise is looking to make further progress, just half a second behind Timmy, and Moosington close on his heels as well. So this battle for P6, obviously tough to see further progress at the moment for these guys, but the scrap for P6 is on, and Bleeding Sunrise backs out down into turn one. A very big moment to commit, but he's forced the defence from Timmy into turn two. But once again, overtaking proving very difficult without a mistake from the car in front. Sunrise, really fighting the steering on the Porsche. It's very much a characteristic of the car, but equally doesn't look that stable, that comfortable, very much on the ragged edge, looking for every little bit of performance to get as close as possible for this move. Just dropped back a little bit on this lap, so I would not imagine there'll be any opportunity down into turn 1 here. Midfield battles also starting to just settle down a little bit, gaps increasing slightly. Pren has very much found his pace and got away from that group. Dennis as well built a slight gap over Yip, and very much the gaps building slightly throughout that. No one really able to stay close for too long. Tyres will definitely be struggling already in the heat here. The tyre temperature's the big issue, not the tyre wear. At the bottom end of the top 10 we've got the 2 Ferraris of PS Vids and CZ Adam fighting over P9, and that is a mistake on the exit of the hairpin from PS Vids. No opportunity into the fast right kink here, but Adam will try and get it lined up, but that was not the ideal run through there. Really wanted to just set it up for the run down the start finish straight, and once again that is not close enough. With the tyre temperatures going on here, I would expect to see some people thinking about an undercut. Obviously, it would have its effect later in the race, having to bring those tyres through 40 minutes or at least over the half an hour, but definitely would imagine there'll be some benefit to be gained from that early pit stop, especially with several close battles on track. And as I say that, it looks like Dennis is dropping back a little bit and bringing a bit more pressure onto himself. Yip looking for that inside line and looks to be through. That will be move done into the next left-hander. So Yip up another position. That has been looking like it was coming at some point. Yip very much making progress over the last 10 minutes here. The quiz next, we'll see if he can make a move there as well. The quiz very, very close and pulls to the inside for turn 1. Will he be brave and stick the nose in? He does try, but very much the advantage with the car on the racing line, able to carry more speed through there. And Dennis holds on to P13 for the time being, as we have a pit stop from Don Michelo. So as I suspected, someone going early, seeing what they can gain. Don Michelo maybe a little bit further back down the order than he would have liked to be. See if this is an opportunity to gain some positions going into that second stint. Back towards the front we have Ollie Racing closing back in on the top three, so it did look like those gaps were extending all the way through, but Ollie here definitely getting a bit closer to the podium battle again, so potentially a little bit kinder on the tyres. Just over a second to Tinnis here. Not looking smooth sailing though, still, with the big sideways moment through the exit of turn 2. But with all three leaders still in sight, there is every opportunity in the pit stop phases. Strong pit stop plus in and out laps could very much gain positions here, and everything is still to play for at the front of the pack. Meanwhile, somewhere along the way, it looks like Bleeding Sunrise has made a mistake of some form. Mr. Moosington threw into P7, and Bleeding Sunrise now 4 seconds back. The gap back to PS Fid's large enough that it was just the one position lost, but yet to see what caused that. Will anyone else make that early dive for the pit lane? Just Don Michaelo so far on the schedule stop, and that surely will be a track limits warning for Ollie Racing. Potentially a no time gained, but very wide out of turn 1. Yet to see a drive through for track limits. Obviously it is on the 4th warning is the drive-through penalty, and there were plenty handed out in the practice race yesterday. We may have some drivers already on that limit on 3 warnings, with a tough race to come. McQuiz next into the pits, looking for that undercut. Obviously McQuiz was in that close midfield battle. Yip, Dennis, Slicker all around there, so undercut territory definitely coming into play now. We will see how it all plays out soon. So at the moment we don't have any close on-track battles. All the gaps over a second now, as drivers definitely starting to think about pit stops as opposed to an individual position. So much to be gained or lost through the pit lane. How much do you risk on the entry? How well you position your car in the box can be crucial seconds, so everything could change going into the second stint here, as Pren also dives into the pit lane. Once again, Skov struggling with that Lamborghini. Has not been a fun day for him. Tyres just not helping in any form. That is looking like a right handful to drive today. He comes straight into the pit lane, get rid of that set of tyres, which is not doing him any favours currently, and we have Devil's Armpit in as well. But we'll see what is the situation with McQuiz and Pren. Obviously Pren a little bit ahead of McQuiz on the road prior to the pit stops, but McQuiz stopping that lap earlier. Will there be any advantage for him from that? So McQuiz comes down to the start-finish line. Pren has left his pit box and is exiting onto the road. It will be close, but I think Pren has still stayed ahead, but Good time gained there for McQuiz, and as you can see, right on the back of Pren now. And actually, oh, I thought there was a move going into turn 2 there. But we have Jazzman in from P2, so the battle for the lead takes to the pit lane. Jazzman first to blink. A major opportunity here already. That top 4 has stayed in order from the start of the race, so it may be that this is the key opportunity for any track position, and Jazzman going for the undercut. Pren doing his best here to warm up the tyres while under pressure from behind. McQuiz looking to see if there is an opportunity early on and take full advantage. But Pren doing an excellent job, doing what he needs to, not giving any easy opportunities, and already after one lap those tyres will be feeling a lot happier. As Tinus and Ollie Racing immediately responds to Jazzman's pit stop, so will there be a change in the order, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, as we have Slicker emerging from the pits behind Pren and McQuiz. Multiple other cars now into the pit lane around this halfway point, looking to keep it very much half an hour on each set of tyres. But let's ride on board with Jazzman and see what the situation is at the front. Jazzman out in front of Tinus and Ollie Racing, so as you were 2nd, 3rd, 4th net positions, just Michelin Man to see how he slots back in. Good time gain on Tinus and Ollie Racing from Jazzman by the looks of it, so there may be some advantage from this undercut as we have a stop-go 30 for PS Vids for speeding in the pit lane. That will be very detrimental for his race, as we have our race leader Michelin Man into the pit lane. And key half a lap here for Jazzman to do as much as possible to get every opportunity for P1, as we have a 2nd speeding penalty for Matthew as his race goes from bad to worse again after that first corner incident. Everyone else now into the pit lane with the exception of Scott Bell and Dennis Van Eyck, the 2 drivers remaining out on track. But Jazzman coming down the start-finish straight, Michelin Man leaving his box now right at the end of the pit lane, and there he is, very, very close, but Michelin Man out in front for now. Jazzman will pile the pressure on immediately though. Almost pushing Michelin Man through the end of the first sector. Close racing, a little bit of door-to-door contact there, but Michelin Man holding on so far. Very, very tough to create an opportunity on this middle part of the lap. Tight and twisty, but nowhere to really get the run. Jazzman will be looking to keep it right here for the run down to turn 1, where there may just be one more opportunity before everything settles down again and Michelin Man builds that gap back to around a second. Still nothing doing. Jazzman incredibly late on the brakes, looking for something, but frustratingly close without any real sniff of an opportunity. Too easy for Michelin Man to just defend when needed. Jazzman determined to find that inside line, but Michelin Man just holding the inside of the track long enough. Jazzman having to lift off, but here we go, running up through the middle of the lap, late on the brakes round the outside, and that is contact again. So these two battling hard at the front. All the while this will be inviting Tinus and Ollie Racing to join the battle. We could have a 4-car fight for the lead very soon. The net lead, as we still have Dennis Van Eyck leading some laps out at the front in his Ferrari, yet to stop. Michelin Man breaking the slipstream off to the left hand side there, and you do wonder if that best chance for Jazzman has been and gone. As our race leader at the moment on track, Dennis Van Eyck yet to pit, but track limits has struck for the first time. Drive-through penalty, so he will need to get that served as well as his pit stop. Hopefully has the fuel to serve the drive-through and then get the pit stop out the way after that. Looking elsewhere, while this battle for the lead has had us completely engulfed, we have a lot of non-change through the order from the pit stop phases. Devil's Armpit looking to have lost out a little bit. Other than that, very much it was PS Vids with the stop go that's dropped down the order. Both Michelin Man and Jazzman deal with the lapped traffic. And the pace settles in once again, so that really did look to be the opportunity for Jazzman. Michelin Man defending hard and did enough to stop that attack. Pace is now building back up and looks like there will not be any further opportunity anytime soon. McQuiz still following Pren since those pit stops. At 8/10 gap. Very much the story of this race, very hard to follow, close enough to get anything done. Bit over the curve there for Pren, and that will allow McQuiz to close up, but once again not enough into turn 2. So Dennis Van Eyck into the pit lane. We will see whether that is the pit stop or the drive-through that he is serving first. It will be a drop all the way back down from a strong position he was running in, and he will then be fighting with those at the back. That was the drive-through served, so just the pit stop, mandatory stop remaining to be served, but very much out of that midfield battle now, and will be competing with those further back that have already had issues in this race. Jazzman keeping it close to Michelin Man, and there will be traffic that may present opportunities as Joe Powell gets out the way there. Next car to deal with will be Rick MotoGP. Michelin Man will be really hoping that this does not hold him up through the final sector, as we have a spinner in front, and that is all very close for Jazzman. Did everyone else make it through? That was Don Michelo spinning round, but as our race leaders came through, it looked like there could be a big contact there. Fortunately, from what I can see, everyone safely through. So Scott's NP5 definitely further back after the pit stop phases, still P5 and comfortable, but very much look to be just gently drifting off the top four battle during the first stint, but not the best through the pit stop phases. Maybe a mistake somewhere that we haven't seen, a small spin, but very much P5, the best result possible on now for Scott. 14 seconds off P4. Still, this midfield battle rages on. McQuiz under pressure from Yip once again. Yip actually one of the losers in those pit stop phases, having made his way through a few cars in the build-up, now has McQuiz in front of him once again, having already made a move once this race. That will give him some confidence that he can do it again, but disappointing also to be put in that position to have to again. Keeping it nice and close through Sector 2. Yep, with the better run than McQuiz. Pren is off as well, so that is one position gained for both McQuiz and Yep. McQuiz narrowing his line into that final corner to really remove any incentive for Yep to make that dive, but Pren with a mistake across the curb through the kink right in Sector 3, and 2 positions lost. Fortunately, no damage, no big time loss, but P11 to P13 as quickly as that. As Yip picks up a drive-through, so this battle will come to an end. I said track limits would be a factor, and that is the second driver already to pick up that drive-through. Still 20 minutes remaining in this race. Very much possible that that will not be the last drive-through of the day. It will bring this battle to a disappointing premature end. Elsewhere, it looks like PS Vids has just cleared Rick MotoGP. Obviously, PS Vids strong pace earlier on, but the stop go 30 for speeding in the pit lane, dropping him further back, and he will now go on the chase of Devil's Armpit, but a 13-second gap will be tough to bridge in the remaining minutes and laps of this race. Dennis Van Eyck still out on his original set of tyres, yet to make that mandatory pit stop. Not really sure what the tactic there is. Very little to be gained at this point. But he is going to be pitting later in this race. And yep, 242. Bad to worse once again. The drive-through penalty served, but speeding in the pit lane during that visit, and that is a stop-go 30. So it will be another visit to the pit lane, and that will be down to the back of the order for you. Dennis Van Eyck finally into the pit lane, having been swallowed up by multiple cars in the last couple of laps. And once again, this race just settling down, gaps eking out a little bit, and no one really able to make those on-track moves. We have seen fairly few overtakes today. Really, it has been a mistake from the driver in front required for any progress. Leading Sunrise still pushing at the end. Lost that position to Mr. Moosington earlier, but within the second once again now. Still closing in ever so slightly here, looking to put the pressure on and see if that mistake happens, if that opportunity is there. Mr. Moosington just needs to keep it clean, really. As we've seen, it's very, very tough to make anything work. These two very evenly matched on pace. It might require an optimistic move somewhere unexpected through the middle sector. Out front, the gap just a second between Michelin Man and Jazzman. It has not been far greater than that all race, but still our top four coming round in qualifying order. As this is a close battle now, Dennis Van Eyck round the outside of Devil's Armpit a little bit. Suspect on track limits, it looks there to me, but Dennis with that late pit stop now pushing hard to try and move forward. Larger gap in front now, in fact very large gap, so that may be the best that Dennis can manage in this race. PS Vids also close behind. PS Vids will be looking to take both of these positions if he can. A full three-way Ferrari battle here. Of course, making it that much more difficult to make that move when there is no car advantage in a specific part of the track. Managing to keep it close through the last corner, PS Vids, and another good run from turn one may create an opportunity into two. Again, a big lift on exit, so is that a sign that PS Vids is playing with fire on the track limits warnings? Is that 3 warnings already, and making sure that that was a no time gains? A very narrow exit there from Devil's Armpit, and PS Vids up the inside. Very, very little defence from Devil's Armpit, but he does manage to hold it round the outside. I thought that move was done, but a good exit for Devil as PS Vids goes for a big lunge. Space given, and on the exit that is done for PS Vids, so very fair from Devil's Armpit, but an opportunistic, optimistic move from PS Vids. And he will continue on the hunt towards Dennis, but Dennis on those fresher tyres seems to be showing some strong pace. As we rejoin the Bleeding Sunrise Mr. Moosington battle, and they are also right behind Timmy now as well, so this will be a three-way battle in the last 10 minutes for P6. Timmy making a mistake somewhere, losing that time before, and another wide moment through the final corner, and Moosington will be almost alongside into one. Who will be braver on the brakes as Timmy turns in, and that is contact between Moosington and DRS Timmy. You have to say there wasn't really the space there for Timmy to turn in. There goes another battle. I thought we were lined up for 10 minutes of 3-car fighting for P6, but now it will be just Bleeding Sunrise and Mr. Moosington. Timmy bring it back on in P8. Big gap behind to CZ Adam still, so he should hang on there. But all very much ended in tears down into turn one there. Bit too aggressive on the curbs from Bleeding Sunrise. Manages to keep the car under control, but won't be wanting to do that too many more times. Very much at risk of the back end just dropping away as the car jumps everywhere. Slight moment just seems to have halted Bleeding Sunrise's chase here. It was looking like he was going to be the car on the attack, but it ended up being Mr. Moosington, and they did both gain the position as the result of the contact. But the gap just seeming comfortable at this point for Mr. Moosington. Bleeding Sunrise once again giving it absolutely everything on the ragged edge in this car, and the back end stepping out corner after corner. Really, this remains, and it will not remain, the closest and only battle on track, as another mistake from Bleeding Sunrise gives Mr. Moosington the breathing space that he wants. But elsewhere, there is not a lot of other close battles either. The battle for the lead actually is still one of the closest, but Michelin Man really seeming to have things under control. Jazzman has kept him honest the entire race, but not quite able to do anything. Closest moments coming just after the pit stop. Jazzman with the tyres up to temperature sooner, right on the back as Michelin Man came out the pits. But barring any mistake late on, it has been very much as you were. Those gaps, you know, just 6 seconds between the top four, but very much stable gaps throughout the race. Very little that any of them have been able to do to make any progress. PS Vids is closing on Dennis Van Eyck, so still potentially another position available if he can keep the pace of that Ferrari going. Will be disappointed, of course, after the stop-go penalty. He was running in front of CZ Adam, would have been P9 at the moment, so 5 positions back as a result. Obviously, the stop-go 30 could have been far worse had it been closer in that middle of the pack, had other drivers not got their penalties as well. And there could still be late penalties for anyone here. So PS Vids looking to put the pressure on and close to within a second. Just 3 or 4 laps remaining now. We do have a battle for P15, Devil's Armpit and JP3. JP3 recovering from that first lap incident. Devil's Armpit right behind. I'm not sure whether these two have just swapped positions already. JP3 looking to be extending that gap from when we jumped on board. Turn to the battle for 13th. PS Vids now within a second from Dennis Van Eyck. And a big wide moment at the final corner for Dennis, and that will bring PS Vids very much into the slipstream and look for any potential overtake in the next 3 laps to finish off this race. Far too wide for PS Vids though through turn 1 in the dirty air, and that is a good percentage of the advantage he just took out of Dennis Van Eyck, gone again immediately. To over a second behind now PS Vids. Ollie Racing in P4 is just over a second behind Tinnis as well. I wouldn't get too excited, as with just 2 laps left of this race and the pace looking very similar throughout, I don't think it will be changing much more, but just showing that he does have the pace to stay with the top 3, and really qualifying looks to have decided this one very much from the outset. Once again, another battle that has materialised that I did not see coming. Skov here on the back of McQuiz for P11. McQuiz, one of those to make the earlier pit stop, so potentially struggling on the tyres a bit more than some others at this stage. But Lamborghini versus Lamborghini for P11 on the final couple of laps. These two as well, with the leaders not far behind. Can they maintain this position without having to give way to the blue flags? It will be a very close round thing. Michelin Man there in the background, so I believe this will be the final lap for this battle, because these two will have to give way, but very much could influence how this takes shape, unless Michelin Man feels he has enough of an advantage over Jazzman not to need to put these guys under too much pressure. But Skov very much in a difficult situation here, fighting for a position of his own, but Michelin Man, the race leader, directly behind him, not wanting to be held up at all, with Jazzman right behind. Does not look like Skov wants to get out the way here. Michelin Man forcing the issue. McQuiz will have to let him through as well, and this may be the deciding factor in the battle. Skov making the most of the leading group to take that position, and that does mean that this battle will end on the final lap. McQuiz pulls out the way of Jazzman, and it looks like Skov has gained that position, making use of the blue flags to his advantage. But across the line to take victory and the lead of the championship it will be as well. Michelin Man with his 2nd win of the season. Jazzman through in P2. Tinnis P3. Ollie Racing very close in P4. And then we have a little bit of a wait. Scott will be through a bit later on in P5. Further back, Skov, obviously, that P11 gained on the final lap, just being lapped by Michelin Man at the end. McQuiz losing out on that position through the blue flags. Dennis and PS Vids finished that way round in P13-14. No late move there, as Scott brings it across the line. Mr. Moosington through for a strong P6, leading Sunrise P7, and then it will be Tim A on his return to AOR P8 after the incident with Mr. Moosington at turn 1, and then CZ Adam will come through in 9th, and a little bit after that we will have Slicker, the final finisher, on the lead lap in the top 10. Just a formality to bring it home. The last car on track. A strong top 10 finish for Slicker. And that is the end of this Valencia race. Very, very exciting at the end with the traffic. Very much difficult throughout the field to find any overtakes. As I said earlier, the top 4 remaining in the same order from the grid to the finish line. Positions gained further back, seeming to come primarily through mistakes, penalties, contact, but very few on-track overtakes pulled off in this one. But a interesting race nonetheless, very much more tactical, plenty to be dealt with from the drivers, the tyres, the track limits, but once again the top 3 on the podium. It's been a consistent feature on the podium, these drivers, and it is in fact the 3rd race out of 4 that these 3 have been on the podium together. Only Coca Original, who is not here tonight, the other driver to have been on the podium so far. Ollie Racing, a valiant effort in P4 in his first race, may well pick up a podium later in the season. But yeah, I will probably leave it there with no interviews from this race. I think fairly little to be said from the top 3. It really was a case of just keeping it in position and a little bit of a battle through the pit stop phases. And I will correctly say this week, unlike last week, that next week is the 75 minutes around Mount Panorama. Completely left out the Valencia race in my head last time. But a week today we will be heading to the mountain. 75-minute race, so slightly longer than the last couple, opening up the pit stop strategy slightly for a little bit of tactics in that one. But for tonight, that is the end of this one. Michelin Man, the winner, and I will see you next week for Mount Panorama.